Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I am bringing you a new weekly reading vlog. So I have just finished exercising, as you may be able to see from the state of my sweaty fringe and the fact that it's like doing this little curling thing, which is very annoying. And yeah, I wanted to try vlogging again for the first time in a while, because for the first time in a while I'm starting to read again. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but I have been in like the biggest slump ever. For me personally, I'm always reading something, and until last week it had been about 2.5 weeks since I had actually finished a book, which is a huge gap for me. That is very unusual for me. And I'm finally starting to get my reading mojo back a little bit, but I wanted to vlog to kind of encourage me to pick things up, to have things to talk to you guys about. So before we get started, I think that it's kind of important to check in during pandemic times. So if you don't want to hear about kind of mental health and weight, you can go ahead and skip to the timestamp on the screen. I totally understand if you don't. If you want to hear about the books, just go ahead and skip to that point. But one of the reasons that I've not been reading much is I've been really low. I have really been struggling with my mental health. As you guys may know, I do suffer from severe anxiety and depression, and usually it's very well managed, but sort of as we've been in lockdown for about a year, just over a year, I have really been struggling for about the past month and a half or so. And I'm starting to kind of come out of that fog now, which is really great. I feel like I'm kind of pulling my life together again. I'm starting to get organized with booktube stuff and with other platforms like Instagram and things like that. I'm going to start ramping those up, and also I'm starting to read again. So I've just not really been there. So some of the things that I'm doing, funny enough, one of the best things, about 2.5-3 weeks ago, I decided to re-download Pokemon Go, which was a huge thing when it came out. I think it was 2016, because I was writing my dissertation when it launched. I remember it was July of 2016 because I was knee deep in my dissertation for my master's, and it was the only thing that got me outside and like out of the flat and away from my computer screen in that period. And I kind of remembered that it existed, and I was like, well, I need to get out of the flat and get away from my computer screen, so why not just give it a go? And I'm like completely addicted again. One of the reasons that I just have been walking a little bit, I've got my little treadmill just here, is because I had Pokemon eggs to hatch. So like, it's working really well for me. A Scottish husband has picked it up as well in solidarity, and we've been like Pokemon hunting and stuff, which is really good. So like, highly suggest, if you're like a nerdy Pokemon person like I am, re-download it and it'll get you outside. And it's been like the perfect thing for the pandemic. I wish I had realized that it would be a great thing to do a lot earlier on, but that's okay. So I have really been struggling with kind of exercise and weight and getting out of the flat. Over the course of the year, I've probably gained about 1.5 stones, which is, a stone is 14 pounds for British or European folks. I really need to start getting myself in shape a little bit, because I've not really been in shape in a long time, but now I'm like extra not in shape. So doing my walking, doing my Pokemon Go has been really helpful. The problem is that reading and walking don't always go together very well, because you'll like walk into a pole or something, which I have done. And yeah, so I've been doing my little treadmill and doing a little bit of reading while on that, but I've also been working on some audiobooks. So now we're going to talk about books now that we're kind of done with that preamble. I am reading a couple of things. When I talk about this in my Getting Out of a Reading Slump video, when I am about to go into or get out of a slump, I do this thing where my brain cannot handle one thing. I'm picking stuff up and putting it down. I'm starting like 7 books and not finishing anything, and I have very much been in that sort of mode. But the thing that's been really helping me is actually Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu. So this is a new release that comes out this week, actually on Thursday in the UK, although I think it's came out in February in the US, and this has been so much fun. So I talk about this in my March TBR. I had started it when I was feeling I was still kind of in that low place, and I only read like 30 pages or so and put it down, but I've come back to it. I'm really enjoying it. It's so fun. Urban fantasy is not really my thing usually, but this has been fabulous. This is really good. So I'm really liking this. I'm almost done. This is the Goldsboro SFF edition, so it's got like the map page edges, and then the top is just sprayed, and the bottom as well. It has, this is like the best thing ever. I wish publishers put bookmarks in more often, but I am on page 266 of like 320 something. Yeah, 330. So I am really close to finishing this. I'm going to finish this up tonight, which I'm really excited for. I've really been liking this. I read this on the treadmill, and I read about 150 pages yesterday in bed, not on the treadmill. And I haven't done that in a really long time. I've been doing a lot of like cross stitch and embroidery and knitting instead of reading, which I'll talk about that in another clip at some point. But yeah, this has been really amazing. I've really been liking this. So when I finish that up, I have a couple of books that I don't have to hand right now, so I'll put the covers on the screen. I have A Memory Called Empire. I'm listening to the audiobook for that. I've been trying to do a book journal, book diary type thing for that, but I've only done one entry so far. And I think it's not very good because you can tell that I was trying really hard to be enthusiastic when I was not in a happy place. So I might reshoot that and then continue on with that if you do want to see an individual vlog for that. But I'm really enjoying that. I'm about 8 chapters in, and it is really good. It's a little bit complex. I'd say if I was reading the physical book, I would definitely call it a little dense, which is not a bad thing. It's just something where you need to pay a little bit more attention. So it's not something where I can listen to it while I am working, for example. I really need to be focusing. So if I'm knitting or something like that, it's the perfect thing, which fortunately I have been doing a lot of knitting. What else am I reading? I don't even remember. Okay, the other thing that I am reading, I just picked up Network Effect by Martha Wells. I'm about 50 pages into that. I am really happy to be back in kind of the Murderbot world. This is the first full-length novel for that series. It's the 5th book, and the 6th, which is a novella, Fugitive Telemetry? Something like that, comes out in April, so I want to have Network Effect read so I can read it for its release. But yeah, I'm really happy to be back in Murderbot's world. Murderbot seems a little bit sassier than usual, a little grumpier than usual, which is like perfect. So I think I'm really going to be focusing on those 2 sci-fi books after I finish Library of the Dead, but I'm also thinking that I might switch it up with something else as well that's maybe not sci-fi, not like too complicated, even though Murderbot is really fun. So I'm thinking maybe I will pick up a YA book, maybe I'll pick up like a romance or something, I don't really know, but I will update you guys on what I decide to pick up soon. I have a ton of arcs that I would like to read. I'm trying to get a little bit ahead on my arc reading, which I'll talk about later when I have a little bit more of a plan in my head. But yeah, it's only Tuesday. I have high hopes for this week. My friend Asha runs a really fun readathon called Conquer a Chonker, which is just the funniest name ever for me. And it's basically a 3-day readathon that will happen this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's basically read long books. So it's 400 to 500 pages, and then 500 to 600 pages, and then like 600 plus pages, and I think I'm planning some really good stuff for that. A lot of the stuff that I have on my TBR is quite long, so I think it's going to be a really good opportunity to sort of dive back into the reading mindset and really spend some time this weekend reading. But I'm hoping to sort of prep myself a little bit by devouring some books this week. So it's Thursday, And the reason that all of this is happening is I'm actually not feeling very well. I think I've caught some kind of cold or something. It's not COVID or anything like that because I don't have like the fever or anything, just like the hacking coughing, which is so incredibly unfun. So it took a little bit of time off of work today. I slept a lot. Really worried about being able to fall asleep tonight. But yeah, I wanted to kind of not lose steam with this vlog. Usually I wouldn't bother if I'm not feeling well, but I didn't want to lose steam because this is like my second vlog of the year, in the year that I was like, I'm gonna vlog all the time. So if I'm a little bit less enthusiastic than I was in the last clip, that would be why. But I do have good news. I finished Library of the Dead the other night after I talked to you guys in my vlog clip, and I really enjoyed it. I'll talk about it more in my wrap-up that I'll do at the end of the month, but it was that kind of really delicate combination of being really fun and a really fun, enjoyable read, but it also sort of combines that with a lot of very kind of serious themes. A lot of the book is sort of sprinkled throughout with almost like, I mean, they're just regular chapters, but they're almost like sort of vignettes about sort of various stages in her life. So she talks about, you know, her grandfather losing her grandfather, and she talks about all this kind of stuff that's sort of tangentially connected to the story. And it's kind of a really powerful look at poverty and at loss while also being a rollicking, fun ghost story. I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it, and it just came out today. Yeah, today in the UK, so happy book birthday to Library of the Dead. I definitely recommend that one. It has a lot of kind of the flavor of Rivers of London by Ben Aronovich, which I know is really popular. I thought this was a lot better, if I'm going to be completely honest. I enjoyed this much more. It might be because I have that stronger connection to Edinburgh than I do to London. A lot of the areas that our characters sort of thread through are sort of familiar places, either places that I know of, or a part of the book actually takes place where I used to live, like a block away. And I was like, ah! It was really fun. So I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a great read. So now I am reading Network Effect by Martha Wells. This is the 5th Murderbot book and the first full-length novel. And I'm really enjoying it so far. I've had a little bit of a slower start with it, just because I've not been reading as much as I probably should be, but it is a book that I'm really enjoying. I'm just shy of 100 pages. I've marked off like 50-page sort of bits for me to kind of encourage me to kind of like keep going because I need that right now. But I'm really enjoying it. I really like Murderbot. I'm a little up and down with the books. I tend to enjoy the ones where it's not like super strongly tied to the main narrative of these characters in the very first novella, which this one is a little bit, but not so much. I'm thinking that I'm really going to enjoy this one. The 2nd and 3rd Murderbot books are my favorite, if anyone's curious. So I'm going to be reading that, and that is going to bleed over into my readathon weekend, my Conquer a Chonker readathon weekend, because this book, oh my god, it doesn't count. So I might set this aside for a little bit as of tomorrow and pick up something else. I have some books in mind, so I'm going to keep going with my audiobook for A Memory Called Empire. And then I think I'm also going to be reading The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke, which is just over 400 pages. So I've done that thing where I've marked out the 50-page bits. And yeah, I think it's going to be really good. I'm very excited to read that. I think it's going to be excellent. I've heard it's brutal, but really good. But yeah, it's going to be a weekend of lots of reading, I hope. And I'm going to be doing some more of my kind of embroidery and knitting and stuff, which has really taken over my life. I asked some friends if they thought it would be fun and not boring for me to kind of show you guys some of my crafting stuff, and they said yes. So I hope you guys enjoy this bit. It's a little bit different from book stuff, but it's really been a thing that I've been doing a lot of. So audiobooks have been an absolute godsend for this, although I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. I'm a big podcast listener. But I'm mainly a knitter. So I've been knitting. This is my current my current project. This is my jumper that I've been making. You can see these are called floats on the inside, so that's how this color work kind of works. I just breathed in my yarn. But this is going to be really boring because it's all white from here out. And it's just stockinette stitch, which is the flat thing. Which is going to be really boring. So I've been avoiding that a little bit. I've taken up instead cross stitch, which I'm really enjoying. And I'm thinking that if I get kind of good enough and confident enough, I would like to start doing like bookish cross-stitch sort of designs and stuff. But if you're wondering what the hell I'm doing while I'm listening to all of those audiobooks, yeah, I've been doing a lot of cross-stitching, so this is the one that I'm doing right now, which I really like. So this is gonna go on the door whenever I'm having a bad day at work and I just desperately need Scottish husband to bring me a cup of tea and possibly some biscuits. But basically you follow a chart. It's, Scottish husband calls it embroidery by numbers. It's the easiest thing in the world. I have some other stuff, but they're going to be presents for people who do watch this channel, so I can't show off too much, but I do have a ton of kits and stuff that I'm going to be doing eventually. I, as I said, would really like to kind of start creating my own designs and stuff, and I'd really like to do some bookish embroidery and cross-stitch patterns, so like, I don't know, murder bot ones and stuff like that, because I think that would be really fun. So if there's ever anything that like you think would be a really good like silly cross-stitch, let me know. But this is totally the best part about doing like embroidery and cross-stitch and stuff. So I have my sewing box, which Scottish husband got me for my birthday last year, which is super cute. It's very tidy right now because I did a big clean out because I'm a very messy person. But the fun thing about doing cross stitch and stuff like that are these things called needle minders. So basically they're magnetic and you sort of clamp them to your fabric and it helps you keep track of your needles, which if you have really stupid cats like I do, they will eat your needles. So if you have them, I think this is my Charmander one. So if you have them, you won't lose your needles quite as easily as I tend to do. So I've got Charmander hugging a Game Boy Color, which is just the best thing. And then I have a little Dax paw, which I also love. But the one that I haven't been able to use yet because I need to have like a really big hoop is actually this one, which is just the best thing in the world. It's the cloak clasp from Lord of the Rings. I will post up the shops for these guys if you're interested, if there's ever anyone out there who is looking for needle minders for some reason, but also they're really just fun and cute to look at. So yeah, that's kind of my collection of stuff. So this is all of my, this is my embroidery box. This is for a secret project, and this is just stuff that I've used in the past that no longer sort of threads up nicely in its own little bundle. But yeah, that's kind of the big thing that I've been doing a lot of. A lot of my sort of depression energy has been going into crafting over the course of the pandemic because I have had just like no brain power for really anything else, and especially in this most recent sort of downturn that I have had, it's just been an absolute godsend. It's been the thing that's really been kind of like letting me sort of let go of my brain for a little bit, because if I plug into like a podcast or an audiobook and I'm just following like my little chart, for example, I can kind of stop my brain. So if there's ever anyone who's interested in doing any of this stuff and does have some of that kind of anxiety or depression or anything like that, I would highly recommend it. And if anyone is a knitter or like a cross stitcher or whatever, please let me know. We can start our own little club or something. But plans for tonight, I had lost my video that I was trying to upload. Let's see if it's actually working. Yeah, it's uploading itself now. I had somehow lost it in my computer. This is a fairly new computer and I don't know what happened. But it's uploading now. It's 5-star predictions. It's a really banging list, I have to say. I really want to read all of these. Just finding the time is hard. But I am planning on overhauling my reading. I think I mentioned this the other day. I am planning on overhauling my reading of like arcs and stuff. And I'm gonna start to implement like a 6-week turnaround time for stuff that comes in from here on out. So hopefully I'll be able to stay on top of things a little bit better, because there's just so much good stuff coming through. I'm at the point where I'm like bold enough to ask for really highly anticipated things. So like I have a proof of She Who Became the Sun, which is going to be a huge, huge book, I think. I'm bold enough to now email and ask publicists for stuff like that. The problem is that I need to make the time to actually read these things. So I'm going to start implementing a little bit of a rigid system for me, which I think will be a really good thing. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. But plans for tonight, definitely getting this video up, my 5-star predictions, and then I'm either going to plug in to a memory called Empire and keep working on my snacks, or I'm gonna read Network Effect. I'm not sure which I'm gonna do yet, but the night is young. It's only 9 o'clock. It's Friday and I'm not feeling very well, so I'm in bed again. But I've been reading a bit of The Unbroken, which is nice, but I'm gonna go back to sleep. Fortunately, I have the most mighty of cat physicians hanging out with me. She and Dax have been doing shift changes, which is pretty cute. I think it's because I'm warm and they like to sit on me when I'm warm, but whatever, I'll pretend that they're working on healing me, it's fine. I sneezed on Sophie and she ran away, so now I don't have any cat friends. Right, so it's Sunday. I obviously left you guys off when I was not feeling very well or very happy in bed. I'm feeling much better. I took Friday and then yesterday to kind of recover a little bit. I was not idle. I did a big overhaul of my Notion yesterday, which, if you don't know, is like a organizational thing where you can create databases and stuff like that, and that's where I keep all of my booktube stuff and all of my book stuff. So my crazy master spreadsheet of all the books that I own. I have my lists of arcs, I have all of my publishing dates, I have all of my like content planning I've added in there. My fringe is doing this again like it was at the beginning. We've come full circle. But yeah, I did a big overhaul of that, which was really good. And did a lot of sleeping, but I also did a lot of reading. So for my chunky book readathon, I did end up starting The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. I'm about 100 pages in. I was hoping to be a lot further than that, but being struck down by a not very nice cold gave me some reading time, but honestly it was a lot of sleeping time. But this is really difficult to put down. This is really, really good, and it's quite uncomfortable in a lot of ways. There will be other people who'll be much better at sort of talking about the themes of colonialism that are in this book than me, and I will try to seek some of those reviews out before my monthly wrap-up, when I will hopefully be talking about this book, having finished it this month. So I'll have those kind of resources ready for you guys, but this is really good. It's really brutal. It's really uncomfortable, and it's fantastic so far. So it's basically two women, opposite sides of the war. One is a royal from this sort of like far-reaching empire who kind of wants to take over from the regent, who is her uncle, who's probably not going to be giving up power anytime soon, and she's kind of got her plans and schemes to claim her throne. And the other person in this is a soldier from like the colonial brigade. She was snatched away from her homeland as a child and basically raised by this empire, not as a citizen, because they're definitely like second-class citizens, but as kind of a soldier. And she's sort of being used as an example of what you can achieve if you just kind of give in to the demands of the empire. And she very much, she buys into it, but she definitely has moments of kind of thinking that maybe this isn't quite right. It's really, really good so far. I'm really enjoying it. Again, hard to put down. And I have mostly actually not been reading this version. I have been reading it on my fancy, fabulous new Kindle. My Kindle was getting a little bit sad. It was about 5 years old. I got it not long after I moved over here. And I was getting a little bit sad, and I decided to go ahead and invest in a new one. I had been trying to read on my iPad to like get rid of the need for a Kindle, just like in general, but it was giving me headaches and migraines, as I talked about in a couple of like wrap up and TBR videos in the past. I've just been having so much trouble reading my NetGalley copies. So I ended up getting, this is the mid-range Paperwhite. It's waterproof, which is like the biggest like benefit for me, is the thing that I kind of care about the most, because I can now read it in the tub, and it's pretty fabulous. I'm about, it says I'm 24% in, and the Unbroken is just, it's so good. I'm really, really, really enjoying that. The formatting for the Unbroken was a little bit funky, so when I wasn't feeling very well, I was like, I just don't want to deal with this. So I ended up picking up the Cottingley Cuckoo instead, which I talk about in last month's haul, and I've read about 15% of that, and that's really good. But I'm kind of focusing on the Unbroken now instead, because that comes out next week, and the Cottingley Cuckoo comes out in April. So I'm still reading ahead, but I am definitely going to focus on the Unbroken more. But the Cottingley Cuckoo is about a girl who works in a like a care home, and there's a particular resident named Charlotte who has these letters that kind of, they claim to prove that the Cottingley fairies, which you can look up, there's a series of photographs that supposedly like proved that fairies were real, and Arthur Conan Doyle like went really big into believing that this was real. It turns out that they were fake, and it really damaged his reputation. She has these letters that prove that these were real, and Rose, our main character, is a very kind of fanciful type person, and she just totally like is engrossed, and she desperately needs to know sort of all the information in these letters. Further on in the book, according to the back, it's gonna get a little bit more Rosemary's Baby. Things will get really, really dark. It sounds really good, and I'm really enjoying it so far, but I do need to kind of like push on a little bit more, and then we'll get into kind of like that darker horror type stuff. But otherwise, yeah, it's been a little bit of a look into my chaos brain this week. Not a lot of reading, but you've seen things like my embroidery basket, which was quite fun for me. I don't know about for you guys. You saw me when I'm sick and totally miserable. I get man flu, and it's the worst. I'm the worst person when I'm not feeling well, which is obnoxious because I get sick all the time in the winter. And yeah, you got to see a little bit of reading, but kind of like chaotic reading, because I was reading so many different things this week and I only finished one thing. So let's review before we sign off. The book that I did finish this week was Library of the Dead by Teal Hoochoo. I really enjoyed this. I'm probably going to settle on a 4.5 star rating. I'll figure it out when I actually like get to the end of the month and do my wrap up, but I really liked this. I thought this was great. Then I read about 70-80 pages of Network Effect by Martha Wells. I am planning on continuing on with this book next week when I am done with The Unbroken, but it's one that I'm very curious about because it's a full-length novel rather than a novella. Things are stretched out a little bit more. I feel like at this point, usually in a Murderbot book, we're like full into the action, but we're still kind of on the edges, and it's really interesting. So I'm very curious to see how this is going to play out. Then I have The Unbroken, as I just talked about. It's a really, really, really good book. I'm very curious to see where things are going to go from the point that I'm at. Again, I'm about 100 pages in, and it's really good so far. I have a feeling it's going to be quite a brutal read. And then, as I just mentioned, I'm also reading The Cottingley Cuckoo. I need to go ahead and finish some of these books. I don't know if I'm going to vlog next week. I don't want to be like, yes, of course I will, because if I do that, I'm just going to jinx myself, and I'm not going to. But I'd really like to vlog next week, so maybe if I do, you guys will end up seeing what I thought of these books that I didn't actually finish. So I would love to know in the comments below if these books are ones that you've read, or maybe if they're in your TBR, if they're exciting new releases for you, and also just what you've been reading this week, or what you're reading right now. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time, hopefully with less of a death cold.